I ruined the best things I ever had. Hi, it's me, Doreen Devine, your favorite recovering narcissist and false lashes and a fragile shame. Today I'm not here to be cute. I'm here to tell the truth. And here it is. I ruined the best relationships I've ever had. The kindest people. The ones who showed up for me when no one else did. The ones who carried my bags, my zippers, my secrets, and my dreams. And how do I repay them? Oh, well, I flip the script. I act like they're the problem. I forget how generous they've been, and I give them nothing. Nothing. Oh, I feel like I'm giving, but I'm giving no grace. I'm giving no warmth sometimes, no help, not even 10 minutes when it matters most. And that's where the abuse happens, darling. Not in fists, not usually. It's in the absence of kindness, in the refusal to be gentle, in the contempt that spills out of me when I feel small inside. Oh dear, and here's the truth I hate the most. If you're not able to be compassionate, if you cannot apply grace when someone needs you most, then leave them alone. Because at that point, you're not just distant, you are abusive. I don't want to be that girl anymore, and that's why I'm a recovering narcissist. I'm owning it. And I'm doing the work, and the work is every day. It's every day, or I won't be in recovery. Just like an alcoholic, reach for that drink again and become an alcoholic again. We need support. This deserves 10 minutes of my day every day, even when I'm uncomfortable. Even then. It really is. And that's why we've created a Love Loops personal growth guides. I forget what we call them, honestly. I have trauma memory, but we've created Love Loops emotional growth guides that are free for downloading so that everyone can join us on a personal growth journey. I really do believe if we're not moving forward as pack animals, we're moving backwards. And we need to be moving forward. We need to be learning to love each other again when we've been taught to hate. That's real. That is real. And that's the work. And that's the work of Love Loops. We need to learn to love ourselves by connecting to ourselves so we can love others by connecting to others and not living in this me versus you mess that we're living in. We're the good ones. You're the bad ones. We're good. They're evil. And that's why Doreen's here too. Not just because I'm sharing with you my narcissism, hoping you wake up, but also because I'm sharing the fact that I'm not an evil one. I'm not evil. Oh, there's people that think I'm evil. Sure, I help people every day for a living. I write books that help people now, and I'm writing Love Loops workbooks. See, she's not evil. Wait, if I'm not evil, maybe those other drag queens reading the storybooks aren't evil either. Interesting, right? I'm out here to spread some love, spread some joy, and just to show the world we're meant to love each other and that nature exists in diversity, and that's good. We're meant to exist in diversity. Yay! We bring all sorts of different colors and flavors to the world, and that's good. It's trauma that traumatizes others. It's trauma that traumatizes others, not your trans friends, not your non-binary brothers and sisters, not and it's the billionaire class that is creating the fear and division. It's so sad to see. And it's traumatized churches, honestly. When we feel traumatized, we feel that we're good and they're bad. That's a trauma response. And now we have to save everyone. That's a trauma response. Oh dear, I could go on forever. This was meant to be a 2-minute video. Not even. Whoops. Oh, read the United States of Disconnection, honestly. Honestly. And look into our free Love Loops. You can start your own Love Loop circle. Wouldn't that be fun? Wouldn't that be lovely? Get the neighbors together, knock on some doors, say, hey, what do you think of getting together every Tuesday night? Or maybe Wednesday, or maybe Monday. Whatever night works for everyone. And hey, maybe we could take turns at each other's place. Or whoever wants to host, we could take turns hosting between the ones who want to host. We could even make it into a potluck. Or we could just show up with our little tea in our hand and do the thing. It doesn't have to be neighbors. Maybe it's coworkers. Maybe it's people at church. Maybe it's people at the community center. Maybe it's people at your gym or in your pool. We have free downloaded resources to create little free 12-week groups where you open the guides together and it guides your conversations. And it guides us as we learn to relate with each other in meaningful ways again, as we practice trust and vulnerability together. We are all a bunch of human pack animals. I'm a human pack animal. You're a human pack animal. All of us, every single one of us, human pack animal. And if you're suffering narcissism, for example, you're having a human experience, and I'm here for it. We can't let the human experience abuse others. That needs to change. That needs to change. But I'm not blaming you for it. You're having a natural experience in the world. You can only have a human experience in the world because you're a human. Everything that's happening for all of us, we're all having human experiences. Mostly that's being misinformed by our traumatized nervous systems. We need to talk about it. And we do. We talk about that stuff on the Friends of Doreen show, and we talk about it in our books. That's for sure. That is for sure. Yep. And we bring up things like homophobia. You know, homophobia is causing straight men to feel distant from each other. You know, they're playing like, oh yeah, no, I'm strong. No. And something goes wrong between them and their partner. You know what they're likely to do? They're likely to devalue the partner instead of actually go there and be accountable. Instead of I hurt my partner's wife, I hurt my wife's wife. Instead they, oh, my wife is such a bitch. She's not talking to me today. Is there a reason she's not talking to you? Well, I mean, yeah, I bet there's a whole bunch of reasons she's not talking to you. But they devalue rather than repair. That is emotional immaturity, and we're watching it take over. What a mess. What a mess. So, Doreen here, we are creating love loop books, workbooks for all different things. You know, there's one called What If It's Me? Oh, what if it's me? You know, I wrote that one because, well, I wrote that with Darren because I am a recovering narcissist. I share openly about what's going on for me in a way that people can, you know, identify with. We all have narcissism, firstly. Don't think you don't have any. We all do. It's just a human trait, a collection of human traits. It's a spectrum, though. There's these ones that hurt others, these ones that are perfectly fine. You know, we need people to take the microphone. God knows Doreen helps me take the microphone. Doreen is my disowned narcissism because I was not allowed to feel proud about myself, and I wasn't allowed to feel good about my achievements. In fact, I disowned them and disowned them entirely. So Doreen has a multifaceted purpose in my life. One of them is being my voice again when I was taught to be small. I was taught to be weak. I was devalued after performances, and performing was what I loved. And the shame response that eventually came up for my performances, well, it stopped me from singing. I didn't sing all these years until I finally started singing as Doreen here. And now I'll sing at the piano and invite you to join me, because honestly, I feel like my voice was meant to be shared, and it has not been for too long. And I have been a writer my whole life. I just haven't published anything ever because I just didn't feel worthy. But now that I have a few letters after the name, we're ready to publish the books, and I'm publishing on my passion subject that I can talk about all day long, and that is narcissism. So I hope you'll tune in, maybe listen to a podcast. We all need to recover from narcissism. And I don't just mean because we're all narcissists, I don't mean that. But when you are with narcissists, you end up sort of playing their game to some degree as well. And we've been watching narcissistic abuse coming from the Oval Office. And by that I mean gaslighting, saying things that aren't true enough times over and over and over until you believe them. The migrants are stealing your jobs. Sure. Up in Canada, they're forcing the values of transsexuals onto their entire population. What a ridiculous thing to say. So twisted. You know what they were trying to say? They were trying to say, up in Canada, they're granting human rights to all the humans. All of them. And they're specifically adding trans just to make sure they're not left out. Because we're all a bunch of human pack animals. We got to recognize that we all deserve protection. We all deserve to love and belong and freedom to be who we are, or we can't shine. And I did not have freedom to be who I was, and I could not shine. I could not shine as I was. I was not allowed by my narcissist father. And this story is written throughout the books because it had a profound impact on who my host is. Well, you know, Darren is also an embodiment actor. So when you listen to Darren, you're going to hear a slightly different character, because when I am my Doreen self, I really am embodying a different kind of energy than Darren does. not to, not to dismiss Darren. He's fine. He's fine. He's okay, but I'm certainly more interesting. Well, what narcissist doesn't think she's more interesting than her host? Anyway, I was holding the pen when he was holding the pen. You know what I mean? As we wrote the book, he's been writing these books for years. Little notes on the phone, but notebook, 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 notebook. Oh my goodness, the mess of notes in this office. The mess of notes, but finally all collected together. Finally all brought together, organized, and then split into a whole bunch of books because there was just too many. There was just too many. Too many. Too many. I just started studying narcissism at the end of a really horrible breakup. Oh, it was awful. It was just awful. And my heart was ripped out in two. It really was. Oh, I've switched into Darren's story. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That's so unclear. That is so unclear. Well, let me tell the story of Darren. So this is how Darren changed what he was doing in his life. Darren's been an awful lot of things. Awful lot of things. Well, having a narcissist father didn't let him shine who he was. He was really a performer as a kid. He loved singing. Singing brought him joy. Just joy. And when he discovered performing, that also brought him joy. And he had that feeling. He knew at the time, I can say things on stage that I can't say. And then in his writing, he discovered I can write things that I'm not allowed to speak. Because he lived in a family that had a strong narrative over a happy family. We're the perfect happy family. Yes, we are. Oh, what are you crying about? Don't cry. Dry your tears. I'll give you something to cry about. Even their empath mother ended up having to adapt to the narcissist father. And of course, whatever you grow up with is normal for you. You can't see it. I couldn't see it. I had no idea. People in our lives, they just sort of blend in and we adapt to them. But I had adapted to a man who would not let me be who I was, who shamed me actively for singing while praising me in front of others. Oh, isn't Darren a great singer? Gets it from his dad. And then around the corner, don't let that go to your head. I'm just being supportive. He would take a moment where I literally would feel like, oh my goodness, I finally feel good about myself for a moment, because I really had self-loathing and self-hatred. Being put down in what you're good at, not being allowed to sing. I wasn't allowed to sing for a long time. It wasn't until I was 12 or 13 that I was allowed to sing. And even then, I was shamed out of it. And just secret shame, just those little comments that made me feel like garbage after a performance rather than appreciated. And then having that at home, and then in public, I would meet the occasional narcissist, who likes the spotlight but doesn't quite have the voice, who likes the spotlight but isn't quite an actor. And I've found these narcissists also holding me down, kicking me in the face, in fact, kicking old Doreen in the face because she had a voice. And my voice is precarious. My voice is precarious because I had a car crash that damaged the muscles in my neck, and it makes it really hard to warm up. It makes it hard to warm up and to stay in the warm voice, and I'm hoping that changes over time. But that car crash, when I was a teenager. Anyway, all these things are in the books. There's too many things to share in a little quick video. This video is meant to be 90 seconds. Whoops. Well, I'm sure it'll be clipped into many, many little clips of videos. Yeah, so Doreen has multi-purposes, as I was saying. And she helped me find my voice when my father shamed me out of singing because I was supposed to be an engineer. And he wasn't able to sell engineering. Look at me, I'm glamorous. Look at me, I'm glorious. Don't you want to be like your dad? I wanted to be nothing like my father. I really did not like the man. But my brother and sister, oh, they looked up to him. Oh, he's so smart. Oh, he's so successful. Oh, he's so funny. Oh, he makes everyone laugh. He has the biggest laughs. He has the best stories. Yeah, he did have the best stories. He really did. I didn't recognize half of them, but they were the best. They sure were. We went to Washington, just him and I. And then we came home afterwards, and I'd listen to the stories of our trip. And they differed so far from reality. And I remember saying, that never happened. And I remember him hitting me. His narrative was the narrative. And we just all learned to laugh along. And you laugh at a story enough times, and every time it changes a little, and every time it gets a little bit better, a little bit funnier. Oh, it was the funniest day we ever had. Oh, it was the funniest time. Oh, we just had the best trip to Florida. Let's erase the days of torment. I remember being so sunburned, so sunburned. I remember crying in bed, feeling like I was burning on any side that was touching the bed, just burning, 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 just so hot, and the pain would not go away. And it felt like my skin was crispy. It felt like paper. It felt like if it bent, it would break. It just felt hot and brittle. As a kid, that just, oh my goodness. And then we go back, and what a beautiful, perfect holiday we had. Oh, it was wonderful. Half of it was spent in suffering. It's hard to be having fun when you're suffering. Um, really. But I was the sensitive one in the family. Oh, you're just too sensitive. Yeah, yeah. And then, of course, being too sensitive, I became the crazy one. So no one listens to Darren. Oh, Darren did it. Darren did it. Became a joke. Darren did it. It was funny because when I was 3, my brother couldn't say my name. He called me Darlin. Darlin did it. Darlin did it. And then blaming me for everything that went wrong became funny. Oh, Darlin did it. Eventually it did become Darren did it. Darren did it. Half the time I did, and half the time I didn't. No, in fact, and most of the time I didn't. I was so afraid of getting in trouble. And then it ended up happening that I would have a shame response when something did someone bad, because I knew I'd get blamed for it and maybe not believed. And then what happened at school, say a kid threw a paper at the teacher, literally hitting her at the head and falling to the floor. And then I'm turning red as a natural response, having been traumatized again and again and again by my brothers, and being punished for things I didn't do. And I don't mean severely punished, but I mean not seen and understood in my experience, and maybe go to your room, maybe miss out on the evening. You're not having ice cream while everyone else does. Things like that for things I didn't do. So it happens at school, I turn bright red. The teacher says, Darren, how did you do this again? And I say, I didn't do it. I didn't do it. Well, who did it? I was taught not to be a tattletale. Of course, a narcissist is going to teach their kids not to be tattletales. You did it. There's no reason you'd be turning bright red if you didn't do it. Get out of my classroom. And this became a theme. It became a theme. It became so easy for the other children to tease and bully the sensitive one. I was sitting in that hallway a lot. And that woman, oh my God, Mrs. Perry, she would dysregulate at little Darren over and over and over. And, little Darren had severe ADHD. How could he not? How could he not, being a hypersensitive kid, being ignored in all his sensitivities and punished for it? So he would be bored of kids asking the same question for the 3rd time. Oh my goodness, she's explaining this again, and he's looking at the window and he's like, oh, look at that, I want to be out there. And as soon as his attention would be out the window was when the teacher would strike. And it wasn't that he was being particularly horrible, but she said, Darren, what did I just say? It was a trap that he would fall in daily. Daily. There was no way he could sit there listening to things that were boring and not accidentally go daydreaming in his mind, even if he forced himself not to look out the window. Don't look out the window. Never look out the window. Don't look out the window. Something might catch my attention, and then I'm forgotten that I'm here. I just would end up staring at anything else in the room. It was too boring. And then they'd tell the next teacher, oh, he's a slow one. He's slow. He's a problem. Oh my goodness. That woman let herself dysregulate at this child. And I mean, she would shout at little Darren. I do mean shout, like really rageful. So if a bully was feeling bored in the class, they knew they could throw a piece of paper at the teacher and Darren would get raged at and then thrown out of the class. Little sensitive Darren. Yeah, poor little Darren. And never really understood in those little experiences and what they do. So Darren truly understands what it's like to grow up with ADHD and be punished for your symptoms. He watched it happen to the next generation as well. He didn't understand it yet. And then, one day he had this relationship that came to an abrupt end. And I remember what I mean by abrupt, I mean it's from 100 to 0. Sure, it was abusive, but it was so confusing. It was hard to feel abused because the gaslighting was so, oh, pardon me, itchy nose. It was hard to feel abused because the gaslighting was so ridiculous quite often. It was just so very untrue. When someone, literally, I'm calm. I'm just not agreeing with what someone said in front of me, and then they're yelling, "You're so abusive! You are so abusive!" And then I'm like, "What are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about? The way you looked at me. Like, how did I look at you? You know how you looked at me." The ongoing, like, what the hell is going on? Just starting fights out of thin air. Well, that's what a narcissist does. It is. I'm sorry. That's what I do. Oh my goodness. And that's why I role play it. I want people to wake up to it because, Darren, he did not understand what was happening. He just did not understand because it was too normal for him coming from a father who did those kinds of things. He couldn't see it as odd. Of course not. He knew something's wrong about it, but he couldn't quite recognize it was abuse, not until he was totally devalued over one conversation and just sort of happy, romantic, cuddly, affectionate, everyday living together too. And we're done. We're done. I'm going to move here and buy this house because you don't want to move to the city and you don't want to buy this house. So we're done. Bye. Oh, and I'm still part of your family. They love me so much. I wouldn't make them go without me. Bye. It tore my heart out. It tore my heart out. I thought we were soulmates. Going from 100 to 0, it ripped my heart out. It really did. It caused me to have an absolute crisis. I couldn't go about my day in my own surroundings. The place where we woke up together, the place where I was holding him every day after work, the place where we dreamed of the future together, until he suddenly wanted to be a house flipper and had no house flipping skills. But until then, we were having such a good life together, and then done. So in my brokenness, I started studying what is relationships and getting over relationships and getting over relationship abuse and what does abuse look like. And I started to recognize, oh my goodness, and the pieces started to get together. And, I was walking down the streets in Slovenia because I had to leave. So I went to Slovenia for a month, as one does. And I was walking down the streets of beautiful Ljubljana, and I suddenly hit me. Oh my God, he was just like my dad. I never even liked my dad. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, I never appreciated his lack of empathy. I never appreciated his bravado, his exaggerations, his inability to let me have my own experience, of course, was the one that did me most. Sending me to soccer camp when I hated it, and making me play baseball for 7 years when I hated it, not letting me be in the music program when I loved it, all those things. I wasn't allowed in until my mother just made it happen. I was a little depressed kid, grade 7, just no friends and no hobbies. It went wrong with friends because I wasn't allowed to have boundaries, so I didn't know how to have boundaries with friends either. So you know what happened? I got abused by my little friends, and then I wanted to be alone. And instead of having friends, I was hiding in my basement because I was taught not to have boundaries, and I didn't know how to say yes to the right people. And instead of saying yes to the right people, I just let anyone in. And then they would invade my space, and they would overwhelm me, and they'd be mean, or they'd just be crowding. And then I'd have to be like, wall. I didn't know how to do boundaries, so I had to do walls. It's true. So I was this little depressed kid. Everything had gone wrong anyway, so many other things. But I was this little depressed kid, and my mom said, I'm taking Darren to music lessons. He's having music. And my dad said, over my dead body. And she drove him there anyway. And unfortunately, we didn't see his dead body for a long time, even though he promised it in that moment. Oh God, it only happened a few years ago. And I didn't start singing until the old goat died, because he'd shamed me out of it so much. That was part of it. What finally went right, I finally started to show my voice and open up. I had to put distance between me and the family system that had me small. And they didn't understand why. It's true. But I had to become the full version of myself. And I'm still becoming the full version of myself. I have a very, very weak identity because I wasn't allowed to have one. I can absolutely forget that I was a teacher. I can forget that I was a business owner. I can forget that I'm a musician. I really can. I can forget those things. It's quite hard to imagine. I imagine for most people, but I don't have a strong sense of my identity. But I'm trying to. I'm learning to. And I'm learning to feel proud and trying to learn to feel good about myself and what I'm doing. even with people around me who don't believe in what I'm doing. But those people I'm trying to keep at a distance more and more because I realize it's holding me back. It's holding me back. You know, even if people aren't toxic, if they're holding you back from your dreams, maybe they're not ambitious, so they don't like that you're ambitious. Maybe they can't dream, so they don't like that you dream. Maybe they're not a singer, so it's hard for them to imagine that you're a singer. Maybe they're not an actor, so it's hard for them to imagine that you're an actor. But you know what? That's been happening. That has been happening to me. Oh, Doreen, no one's going to like you. Who's going to come? And then it's happened. It's truly happened in my very own social group. I've had people no come. It's like, oh dear. So it keeps coming true, that feeling of taking away my voice, that feeling of my voice. And I was also programmed that no one likes that. No one likes a show off. No one likes a show off. You know what? When I was trying to get through to my dad that singing was something really important to me, and I had a big voice listen, and I made a big voice sound, and he was like, oh wow, that is a big voice. Yeah. He couldn't deny that it was a little different than the other voices. It was like his cousin who was an opera singer who had a show at Carnegie Hall. Yeah, right. Like that. But you're not allowed to use it. You know what you can use it for? You can be a town crier. That's what he told me. And he made the effort of actually introducing me to a town crier as his son with a voice. And then he had the town crier teach me a town cry to try out. That I should be using my voice by shouting into the streets, "Hear ye! Hear ye! In the city of St. John, in 1962, it's Tuesday, today in the news." It didn't feel the same as singing. You know what I mean? It just didn't quite feel like, didn't tickle my heartstrings. I did not want to be yelling in the streets. I was a sensitive, creative kid. What a jerk. What a freaking jerk. You know, when he made sure I didn't get into a famous choir, it was like, I remember it felt like a lifeline. You know, it really felt like a lifeline. And he came into my music class and he said something to my music teacher, something mean, that caused her to point at me and say, oh, he's a bad kid. He's a bad kid. You don't want him in the choir. I was listening to the kids around me. I was listening to kids singing out of tune. I was listening to kids with little weak voices. And I was really excited, like, oh my goodness, when I get to sing. No, I can't hear anyone here can sing. No one here can sing. My goodness. And I was just surprised about it. I wasn't feeling better then. I was just like, wow. And then I got kicked out of the room. Him, get him out. He's not, no, he's just not worth the trouble. Thanks, Dad. Oh gosh, that little. And then I was so depressed and so alone in a happy Christian family. All my effort was in pretending to be happy. I spent so much time just pretending to be happy and feeling so ashamed of my sadness. Because I had nothing to be sad for. All those people starving in Africa. What's wrong with you? And I'd cry alone. I'd cry to music. And thank goodness I did, because that kept me in touch with my emotions, even though I was alone in them. So I didn't disconnect. I didn't shut down. I didn't have that ability to shut down. Instead of shutting down, I tried to kill myself. And I did. I tried to kill myself in high school, and I injured my neck. And they didn't figure it out at the time, what was causing my voice to be weaker than it was. And they had to look in for nodules, and I was with that person, and for some reason I was alone, because for some reason my mother was in the hallway. Because she was like, well, this is a medical appointment. I guess your mother shouldn't be there for the speech therapist when you're 15. No, 16. I was 16. I had my license. It's true. Oh, she has a terrible memory, though. So I was in there by myself, and I remember the woman saying, well, there's nothing wrong. There's just nothing wrong with your voice. So it has to be nodules. I can't see them, but it has to be nodules because there's something wrong, and we can't see it, so there must be nodules. Bye. So I tell my mom, it must be nodules. It was never nodules. It was neck strain. It was neck strain from a car going off a highway with a pedal to the metal, with no seatbelt on, of course. You know, the car went off the highway and it went boof into a rock face, and it flipped end to end to end to end and came to a crash on the floor. Imagine it. And I had accidentally just wedged myself in. Of course I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. I was trying to end my life as a miserable teenager, not allowed to be who I was. So I wedged myself in. Oh, and on the top of that, I had the belief that I was evil. Yeah, I was hearing that from the youth group. Yeah, being gay is evil. Oh, that's bad. So I was trying to pray not being evil. I was trying pray. I would pray not being gay, and it just never worked. So one night I went out, and after a long story that I might share in a TED Talk, I then crashed this car into this rock face, entirely intending to be the end of my miserable life where I was not acceptable as who I was. In fact, I didn't deserve to live, just like I didn't deserve to have friends. I really believed those things. I looked like such a popular kid because I was such a kind kid. I had such a strong empathy, but I did not allow it to be for myself. I let others lean on me, but I never leaned on them. And I lived in this disconnected world of a narcissist, but I wasn't living with narcissistic defenses. And a narcissist lives too alone in their world. That is what's happening. There's no one really in that inner circle with them. And I know how that feels. I had no one in my inner circle either. But I was drowning in sorrow when I was alone, and then pretending to be happy, and then drowning in sorrow when I was alone, and then pretending to be happy. And I felt so ashamed that I would drown in sorrow. I thought there was something seriously wrong with me that I would be drowning in sorrow when I'm alone. Our need for belonging is so intense. When we think we'll be fully rejected for who we are, if the people around us know who we are, this has a huge impairment on our mental health. We're watching it happen to politicians right now, closeted politicians who have this feeling if they were just living their own lives, they would be fully rejected and they'd be bad people. And they don't want to be bad people, so they're living secretly with wives who they're not able to fully feel it, because they're gay, married to wives, and then they get passive aggressive, and they do develop narcissism because they're living in hiding, which means there is no one in that inner circle unless they have a secret lover on the side. And they do develop the defenses of narcissism because when we human pack animals are too alone, narcissism is the defenses we use. Oh, you don't matter anyway. Oh, I don't need them anyway. Oh, I'm better than them anyway. Oh, I'm smarter than them anyway. Oh, that's not true. That's not true. I'm not even going to listen. I'm not even considering what they're going to say. The ability to double down against actual information. Oh, we're watching it play out. We are watching narcissism and emotional immaturity play out in politics in the US like nowhere. We almost saw it here in Canada too, our own little poilievre, playing the same little game of blaming others, and fear-mongering. Criticize the other. Oh gosh. That's devaluation. It is. It's a narcissistic process, and name calling. That's another thing that happens. Those are childish narcissistic processes. Someone doesn't like what Trump's saying, you'll name call, give them a negative nickname. Childish much? Yeah, absolutely is. We need to wake up from childishness. Narcissism has been a little bit worshipped. I won't lie. People think that people who have bigger houses or better cars are better than they are. I don't know. It makes no sense to me, in fact. It's usually not true. We're just a bunch of pack animals. We're all equals, honestly. If someone has achieved more comfort for themselves, great, enjoy your comfort. But it doesn't mean you're better than your neighbor who has less. Oh my goodness. And the race, the invention of race, what a mess that is too. Truly, we're just meant to love each other. I believe that wholeheartedly. We're just meant to love each other. That was the whole message of Jesus. Love each other. Be kind to each other. What you do to the least of us, you do to me. What does that say to you? Does that say cut the Medicaid? No, it doesn't. Does it say let's cancel the Meals on Wheels? No, it doesn't. Does it say let's cancel FEMA? Or how about DEI programs for people who have had a starting line way back here when other people have had a starting line here? The difference between growing up and your parents both went to university and you have this expectation of university, And when it comes time for that type of your life, it's just like, what university you're going to. You don't think that starting line's a bit different than if no one in your family has been to university due to oppression? It's a totally different starting line. It's absolutely different. And usually the financial difference in the ability to achieve. And the ability of those parents to show their kids, this is how you're successful in school. This is what you can do. Yeah, if you've been absolutely oppressed, traumatized, and you're starting over, you're just starting from nothing, trying to build one trauma person with another trauma person, that is not the same starting line. And people who come from massive trauma and oppression, they do need encouragement to take those roles that we need them to be in. They're underrepresented in therapy, that's for sure. That is for sure. I see way more clients of color than I do of white clients because there's just simply not enough therapists that are not white to be able to serve and understand them. Now, luckily, I've traveled the world and I've lived with families here and I've lived with families there, so I've really done my best to learn about our world in that way. Living amongst people, staying. The family that comes to me first is a family in Mysore who were just so very special, and I just felt like part of the family. But it helps in that culture, calling the older people uncle, for example, auntie and uncle. So the kids of the family automatically call me uncle. They think nothing to take an uncle's hand. Just, and I was so warmly welcomed, and they didn't need the funding, and they brought me into their home and we shared dinners, and it was just one of those special moments. It was like being part of a family that I wish my family was more like. And that happened for me in India with one of the many families I stayed with. These kind of experiences, they change who they are. I spent a month in Richmond, downtown Richmond, Virginia. Sometimes Darren was the only person who was white in the whole picture. He walked to the little local pub and like, oh, where have I rented my Airbnb? Oh my goodness, isn't that interesting? And trying to befriend the locals was quite a wake-up call. That's where I learned about white flight. That's where I learned that people were scared of him. They were scared of him. They were nervous of him. Why are people not friendly to me here? They're afraid. They're afraid that you're going to get nervous. And then for whatever reason, you're going to call the police because you're nervous. And whatever your body, that's the trauma of racism. That is literally a trauma in the body that gets stirred up. And they feel like, oh, they're attacking me. That is the trauma of racism. And that black population, downtown Virginia, they were so used to the trauma of racism getting struck that having a white person among them was a little bit nerving. Make sure they're happy. Don't get nervous. And later I met a friend. Well, I had a date. He was a lovely man, with a gentleman who was a classical lover, like herself, and a music teacher. And I discovered from this person, after they explained to me why they were so afraid of me when we first met, and I was like, why are you afraid of a Canadian tourist? Well, that's the world he lives in, isn't it? And I discovered that it wasn't safe for him to drive while black. I didn't know that as a Canadian. That came as news. Not safe to drive with black. What could go wrong driving around St. Louis black? And he told me stories about friends get pulled over for something they didn't notice, or nothing at all. But maybe there was a light out. Maybe they forgot to use a blinker. Maybe they stopped too fast, or they stopped too slow. Maybe they were going 7 miles over the speed limit when everyone else was going 20 over the speed limit. Those kind of things. So they get a grumpy cop pull them over. And this grumpy cop treat them in some kind of way, accuse them of some kind of thing, and somehow get them arrested. They were just driving down the highway, living their lives, and now somehow they're getting arrested. And then because of their arrest, they end up losing their job. Because it's not good to be arrested. Their job says, oh no, criminal record, I'm sorry, you can't have a criminal record and be a PSW. No, you can't help people for a living and have a criminal record. We can't trust you. Sorry, you're out of work. And then the apartment says, no, 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 you can't just not pay us rent because you got fired. Get fired for being falsely arrested for driving while black. So unfortunately, you're going to lose your apartment as well. And then the girlfriend's like, oh, I'm sorry. I can't date a loser. I can't date a loser who got arrested and who lost their job and is homeless now. That's driving while black for some people. Do you get the difference in freedom? Do you get the difference in privilege? I learned about those things third hand. I didn't know about those things. Those things are happening in America. You might be having a lovely life. Oh, Karen, that's why I got my hair. I got my Karen hair. I'll go into Whole Foods and you just having a life, and then oh my God, why? Well, this person parked too close to me. Oh, they parked too close to me. Oh, look who it is. Oh, no wonder they parked so close. I bet they were trying to make it so I couldn't get into my car. Oh my goodness. I'm going to tell them the world we live in, the daily abuse people receive. Racist abuse is narcissistic abuse. It is. I write about it in the books too. It is. It's childish. It's turning tables. It's gaslighting. It's all those things. It's devaluing others. See what I mean? And you know what? Fear. Fear is what turns off those parts of our brains that are the most evolved. The reason that feminine is considered the most recent, the reason that Eve comes after Adam, it's not because she's less than Adam, it's because she's the next step in evolution. All these traits we consider feminine, they're not feminine. Men and women all have nervous systems for one. We do. And the men disowning their nervous systems is the cause of the mess, a lot of the mess we're seeing right now. So make sure to read the books, because it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. Learn to love each other. Start a love group. Start a group. Just get the neighbors talking to each other. Or, get a good diverse group of people if you live in a diverse community like I do. But whatever you do, don't do nothing. And remember, love wins. And we need to learn to love each other. With all this hate, with all this fear, we need to be able to develop trust in our neighbors. Even our drag queen neighbors, even our trans and non-binary brothers and sisters around us, all of our neighbors. Not just those ones. Not just the good ones who go to Christian, whatever. Like, oh, she's a good Christian. She's a good Christian. What is that saying about the others? There's lots of good non-Christians, I can tell you. And there's lots of Christians who are really, really off base. Really off base, preaching fear or living in fear. And that's the opposite of Christian. It is. We're just meant to be loving each other. It's true. Oh, dear. Go love each other. Thanks for watching this crazy long video. I have to take my makeup off so I can walk the dog. Oh, the dog. Bless poor Jake. He's been waiting patiently. Haven't you, Jake? Oh! There, Jake. It's hard to see, isn't it? There's my Jakey boy. Oh, he's been right here the whole time. Good boy. Well, I can see he hasn't suffered too much. I'm going to have to wake him up for his little walkie poo, but he's going to be happy to have lunch. That's for sure. Little Doreen here. It's been lovely sharing this 90-second video with you. That became a short lecture. Oh dear. I need Doreen can make lectures. By the way, if you're looking for a lecture on narcissism, she can talk forever, and so can Darren. Honestly, on this topic, yeah, I can keep going and going and going and going. It's true, and we can reel it in to those specific topics too. Check out the United States of Disconnection. There's like 58 chapters of goodness, and each chapter is a different topic. Oh yeah, and there's top 10 lists all throughout. Learn the top 10 impacts that having a narcissist dad had on a daughter, those kind of things. What are the top 10 narcissistic red flags you might happen to miss? What are the 10 best ways to deal with your narcissistic partner? There's a whole bunch of at least 58 top 10 lists. So just among the fun of reading that little book. Enjoy.